going on, y'all? Welcome back to another session. Hope y'all are doing marvelous as always. And for this one, finally I'm gonna incorporate a little bit of fitness stuff. You know, my past sessions have been a lot about nutrition, and now I want to incorporate some of fitness into that. So this particular one is going to be about starting the journey. So we're into the new year, and you know, there's still a lot of y'all New Year's resolutions out there. Yeah, that's right. You know you are. Okay, don't go hiding now. You know, you come look at this video and you want to click off just because I said New Year's resolution, and you know you are. Nah, but for real, this isn't just for New Year's resolutions. It's really for anyone who is looking for a starting point, you know, in their fitness and nutrition journey. So the first thing here, when you're starting your journey, you want to make sure you work out your goals first. Okay, so I have down here just a few things. I mean, none of these may really be your goals. These are some of the most common ones, but you know, maybe your goals are something else. But what I've written down here are 4 things. You know, maybe your goal is to lose weight / body fat, right? Maybe you want to gain more muscle mass. Maybe you would like to condition yourself to improve your eating, right? Your eating habits. Or maybe you want to decrease numbers in your chart, which sometimes kind of go hand in hand with the other goals anyway, just depending on what you're eating and, you know, if you have a lack of exercise and so on and so forth, right? For cardio, you know, if you're looking for a good place to start, if you know how, because obviously, you know, I'm not naive enough to know not everyone knows how to swim, but you know, I would say start swimming, you know, as a starting off point, okay? Or you can just start off doing something as simple as walking. Talking about fitness and nutrition, you're of course still investing in yourself, right? That means you are going to have to do some things, right? You have to pay out of pocket for things that will help reach those goals. So like whether it's eating better, right? That means you'll be spending money on better foods, you know, fruits, vegetables, you know, some more whole foods, things like that, right? And now as far as nutrition goes, or as far as fitness goes, you know, you'll be looking at maybe a gym membership, okay? Swimming and walking. The walking is something, of course, that you can do anywhere, which is why it's one of the best, you know, places to start, right? You can walk anywhere. If you have a park near you, or if you live by a beach, you know, an ocean front or something like that. If it's like really cold outside, or, you know, if you're located someplace where it is really cold, then of course you're going to want to maybe invest in maybe some home gym equipment. Maybe not a whole lot, perhaps just a treadmill or an elliptical or something like that, or walking pads. You step on it and you just, you know, walk, right? And you still get your steps in that way. You know, you still work towards a goal. Now I put swimming, right? Because my next bullet here, swimming is the easiest on joints, right? So if you're one of those type of people that suffer from ailments and injuries and things like that, and no matter what age group you are, swimming is probably the easiest on joints at all age group as far as time frame goes, right? Now you want to start about 30 minutes up to 3 to 4 times a week if possible. Now obviously, you know, everyone's situation is different, okay? So it's important to assess your situations, make moves based on what you got going on. I believe I talked about this a few videos back, right? But there's recommendations by health agencies that talk about how much cardio you should get in a week, especially if you are a healthy individual. There's one of 2 methods. You have 150 minutes per week, provided you're doing moderate intense activity, or 75 minutes per week if your intensity is more vigorous, right? If you're doing more vigorous and more high intense exercise. So 150 minutes per week can look like, you know, 30 minutes 5 times a week, or maybe 45 minutes for like 4 times a week. That's going to put you a little over 150, but you get the concept. It's going to put you like in that range. Or if you want to push yourself, which again, I know you're starting off, so you may not be, it's assumed, it's implied that you're not quite there yet, but 50 minutes 3 times a week still get you 150. So this is walking, by the way. A 155-pound person who walks at 4 miles per hour, which is considered moderate pace, they can burn up to over 260 calories. So generally speaking, the heavier you are, the more calories you'll burn. Because when you do cardio, whether it's walking, swimming, you know, whatever, when you're heavier, you know, it's a lot of weight to move. So your body essentially has to expend a little bit more energy in the form of calories to be able to support whatever it is that you're doing. For moderate intensity, right, you can try elliptical or the stair stepper for the same amount of time and duration. Okay, so if you're at the point where you're looking to push yourself, okay, you can try something like that. The elliptical and stair stepper, they're very great. They burn just about a little more than walking, right? Maybe not as much as swimming. For higher intensity, okay, I'd recommend things like, of course, running. And as a matter of fact, besides swimming, running is probably the best option for you to lose calories, or for you to burn calories and ultimately lose weight. Hitting the heavy bag and or the speed bag, right? Which is what I do, a couple times a week at one of the gyms I go to. For me, I like to run. I actually love to run, but I do have to be careful because I do have ailments. So, ironically, I do have ailments from my military service. I have shin splints, plantar fasciitis in one foot, a heel spur in the other, and tendonitis in one of my knees. And then there's also HIIT, right? High intensity interval training. More calories are burned with higher intensity. So high intensity interval training, I actually have some videos on my channel here with like warm-ups, cool downs, and then there's the hits, right? Round 1, 2, and 3. So round 1 is basically the more beginner to intermediate level exercises, and round 2 is the more intermediate to getting up to advanced level, right? And round 3 is a little bit of a mixture of both, right? A mixture of all, beginner, intermediate, advanced. It's like a mixture of everything. Each round is about 10 exercises. It should take you about 22 minutes, last I calculated, if you're doing it, the way that it's set in the video. If you do 3 sets of 45 seconds, 30 seconds, 15 seconds, with about a 15-second break in between each set, it'll take you about 22 minutes to get, that HIIT workout done. The HIIT workout that I put together. It should take you about that amount of time to get it finished. And that's without the warm-up and cool-down sessions that I also have. So if you do the warm-up before and then do your round of HIIT, and then the cool down session after, it'll easily take you 30 minutes because the warm-up session takes 5, cool down session takes 5. So that's 10 right there, in addition to the 20 or so for the actual HIIT workout itself. So it's easy, a 30-minute workout. You can find those videos if you're looking for another place to start as well. So that pretty much covers cardio, right, as far as getting started. You want to make sure that you are doing things that is not going to hurt you. But of course, you want to improve, progress yourself, do, more, increase the intensity, increase the duration, increase the frequency, but make sure you're not doing it to the point where you're going to injure yourself very badly. Starting out, your weightlifting, there's a few things you want to keep in mind, all right? The very first thing you want to pay attention to is make sure that you are training in a functional way. And what that means is doing compound exercises as opposed to the isolation ones. Not saying you don't do isolation exercises, but you want to do compound movements, right? You want to make sure you're doing exercises that work multiple groups at the same time. That's what a compound exercise is, by the way, for anyone who doesn't know. Those are exercises that work multiple muscle groups at one time. So an example would be the bench press, right? When you do the bench press, you're working, of course, your chest is the primary group, but then you have a little bit of your front delts, right? Your shoulders, and you also have your triceps as somewhat of a secondary. Any movement that requires you to push, you're going to be activating your triceps. And versus, the other way, any movement that requires you to pull, you're going to be activating your biceps. So another example of compound exercises would be rows, right? Whether they're bent over rows, or just, you're seated at a machine and you're doing cable rows, or if you're doing lat pull downs, right? Any kind of pulling is going to require you it'll force your body to activate its bicep as somewhat of a secondary. But the main or the primary muscle group is your back and lats for when you're doing pull downs and rows and things like that. The deadlift, right? The Romanian deadlift, that's another one. When you do deadlifts, you work out your, a lot of your lower back gets hit, but then you also work your hamstrings too. A squat, that's another example of a compound exercise. When you do the squat, your quadriceps, right? Your right here, your front, part of your legs, that's your quads or your quadricep. Those are your primary muscle groups. You may feel a little bit in your hamstring, depending on the angle of the squat. and your feet placement, right? If they're wide out or if they're, a little closer in. Angles come into play when it comes to weightlifting and doing different types of exercises as well. But as far as the squat goes, you'll also feel it in your glutes, right? And you may even feel it in your lower back as you come down and you singe, right? And then come back up. Same thing with the leg press. Only difference is the leg press, you're actually, your back is supported. So you're sort of, placing your back against the pad and you're just using your legs to push. But you still activate your quadriceps and your glutes. Maybe even a little bit of your hamstrings, depending on the angle. The isolation movement is pretty much self-explanatory. It's any exercise that isolates a specific muscle group. So an example of that would be the bicep curl. When you do bicep curls, the only muscle you're working out is your bicep. Well, and actually maybe a little bit of your forearm, depending on the type of bicep curl you're doing. So if you're doing like hammer curls, or if you do reverse curls, right? Because there's reverse bicep curls. Your forearm comes into play there too, but you'll even still feel a little bit of your forearm working when you do regular bicep curls. But the main or the primary muscle group that gets hit is your biceps. Skull crushers are another one. When you do skull crushers, that's your tricep, right? You hit all three heads of your tricep. Leg extensions, right? So when you're sitting down and you're doing leg extensions, when you extend your leg out, your quadriceps is the only muscle that's getting worked out. Also, conversely, hamstring curls. So when you do hamstring curls, your hamstrings are the only muscle that's getting worked out, right? That's the primary muscle group that's getting hit. You want to make sure you warm up prior to your session and then try to cool down after. It's important to do so because you want to get your muscles nice and relaxed, right? You want to open your muscles up. Not too much though. You don't want to overly relax your muscles because then, it's going to affect your performance. You want to use light weights first. And lightweight is typically anything that can be done for between 12 to 15 repetitions per set. An argument has actually been made that 15 can easily be turned into 20. So if you can go up to 20 in your set, that's perfect. That's cool, But the weight either way when you're starting out has to be light enough for you to be able to do between 12 to 15 or, if you can, 20 reps. Because what you don't want to do, of course, is, you start lifting heavy right away, because that's the quickest way you injure yourself. And that actually leads me into the next bullet. When you're using light weights, whether it's light or heavy, doesn't really matter. What you want to focus on is you want to prioritize correct form and executions, okay? It's very important. I see a lot of mistakes in the gym. Make sure you prioritize correct form so that you don't hurt yourself and that you actually maximize your muscles and you get the gains that you're looking for. So what I have here is eccentric and concentric. So what the eccentric movement is the eccentric part of the exercise is the part of the exercise where you're coming back to the start position. The concentric would be the squeeze part. So let's say a bicep curl, for example, right? A bicep curl, as you come down, that's the eccentric part of the movement or the part of the exercise. When you come up and you squeeze, that's the concentric. The bench press, same thing. When you come down to your chest, right? That's the eccentric part of the exercise. When you go to push up, that's going to be your concentric. Going into the bench press, just as an example, when you come down, right, you want to on the eccentric, right, you want to come down slowly, right, really get that good stretch in. And then on the concentric, when you push up, you want to almost explode up, right? And then do the same thing over. You come down slowly, open yourself up, get that good stretch in, right? Open your chest up, and then go ahead and push out. Same thing with the bicep curl, right? With the bicep curl, you come down on the eccentric nice and slowly, and then come up. And what I've heard a lot of people say, I've always actually been taught this when I was a kid, but when you on the concentric, you want to try to hold for a 1 count or at least a 1.5 second count. So with the bicep curl, you come up, right, and you hold for 1 or 1.5 count, and then come back down slowly, right? And when you get all the way to the bottom, then come back up. Squats the same way. As you come down in the squat, you come down slowly, right? Singe into that squat, and then come up, right? Almost explode up. Not literally, but come up, a little faster than you would on the eccentric. That's the proper way, you know, to do a movement. You want to prioritize correct form. Another thing I see a lot of people do, just as an example, is like when they do legs and they hit the calves, right? So when people do calf raises, they do stuff like this, right? This is their repetitions. This isn't the proper way to do a calf raise. So what you want to do is you want to come up, right? Hold for 1.5 count, then come down slowly, and then come up just like this. This is how you want to do calf raises, right? You may build muscular endurance that way, but if your goal is to look and put on some size, that's not going to be the way to do it. So you want to make sure you concentrate on slow and controlled movements always. Implement the principles of overload and progression. So the principle of overload basically is you want to increase the duration, frequency, and intensity. Okay, you want to overload your body, not to the point where you're going to injure yourself, of course, but you always want to do more than last time. Oftentimes the principles of overload and progression, they kind of go hand in hand, right? Because progression essentially is somewhat of the same thing, right? It's not so much overload, but progression means, you know, you're progressing, right? You're progressing your whatever it is you're doing. So like, let's say you're doing bicep curls, or you're doing like the military presses or what have you, and you're using 20-pound dumbbells. The next time you go in, you use the 25s, and then maybe a time or two after that, when you hit shoulders again or you hit biceps again, maybe you use 30s, and then 35 sometime down the line. So the point, that's what progression is. You want to progress from where you were before. You know, work your way up. For example, even if you don't increase the weight, increase the frequency at least. So let's say you use the 20s, or we'll say 25s, right? So you're doing 25s, dumbbells or whatever, and you're doing dumbbell curls, right? Let's say you've gotten up to about 10 reps. Well, maybe the next time you go in, or the time after that, you go and you do bicep curls, maybe you're doing 12 instead of 10, or 15 instead of 10, right? That's what you want to increase if not the weight, you want to at least increase the frequency, or increase the duration. This doesn't just apply to weights. This also applies to body exercises as well. So like push-ups, for example, or even pull-ups. You know, there's people out there that can barely do one push-up. But hey, you know, if you get to a point where you can do one push-up, the point of progression, you know, the principle of progression states that you should be able to do maybe, let's say 5 the next time, or, you know, a couple, maybe 2 times after that, when you do push-ups again, right? But the point is to progress yourself. And that works just as good with body exercises as it does with weights. So push-ups, pull-ups, even like sit-ups, you know, if you're doing ab work, if you're doing like, I don't know, like lunges with no weight, squats with no weight, you're just using your body, same thing. That pretty much concludes everything I wanted to go over in starting your journey. So if you are a New Year's resolutioner, or even if you're not a New Year's resolutioner, you want to get started in this journey and you have no idea where to begin, you know, this should give you a little bit of an idea as to where to begin. I'm gonna touch on the goals a little bit as part of my recap. When you lose weight and or body fat, remember that a healthy weight loss is anywhere from 1 to 2 pounds per week. That's a healthy weight loss. Now, everybody's different, of course. Everyone's genetics is different. It's important that, you know, you're not that person that always steps on the scale to try to see how much progress they've made. Because while a scale is one factor, a scale is not the end all be all for you to know whether or not you have progressed in your journey. You'll know how you're progressing based on how you look, right? If you're starting to slim down in certain areas, maybe your face is thinning a little bit, maybe your midsection is slimming, or maybe you're toning up places where, you know, was just kind of fat, I guess, or just was a little loose or extra. You know, maybe you're toning up there, maybe it's in your clothes, right? Your clothes is definitely a big indicator. If your clothes end up getting too big for you, that's how you know you're definitely losing weight. You can't just step on the scale at any time of the day. It's to get the most accurate reading, you want to step on the scale first thing in the morning, as soon as you get out of bed, right? Before you have had anything to eat. If you need to use the bathroom, you know, I've seen studies say that it doesn't really help too much, but you know, it can't hurt either. If you need to use the bathroom, do that first. Do your, number 1 and or 2. If you do that first thing in the morning, get that out the way, okay, and then step on the scale. Make sure that you haven't had anything to eat or drink, because once you start eating and drinking, you now have stuff in your system. So the accuracy of the number on the scale has been thrown off already. Also, when you weigh yourself, make sure like you do it in your undergarments, right? Because clothes do weigh, by themselves, right? Clothes weigh, a certain amount of pounds on their own. When you put on jeans or you put on a jacket or a shirt, that stuff can get heavy, and it'll add to your weight, which will, it won't make it accurate. The next one is gain muscle mass. I think I'm gonna actually save this for the next video. Next one, condition yourself to eat more clean. So if that's your goal, I do have a suggestion. It's something that I, do myself. It definitely helps me out, and it also saves on money too. So what I do is I will go buy the vegetables that I know I cook with frequently. I'll cut them up as I need to, if they need to be cut up, and then I'll put them in freezer bags, and then I'll throw them in my freezer. Now, the good thing about a lot of vegetables is they don't, even when you buy them fresh and then you freeze them, they still hold their nutrients for up to a year. I don't have to buy vegetables each time I go to the grocery store. Maybe it's every other time, or every other time. But then decrease your numbers in your chart. Again, a lot of that goes hand in hand with some of the other goals too. I do understand, right? I do empathize with y'all that have those conditions, because I know it's not easy. Maybe there's people that have thyroid conditions, or things like that. It's not easy, but you should definitely make sure that you at least give it a shot. You should at least try, right? But something I forgot to mention, is like the different splits, right? Again, when you're starting your journey, you want to find what works best for you. There's splits that some of us find easier, that they call it a bro split. Maybe you do a push-pull day, like a push day, a pull day, right? Which is where you work nothing but push movements. So that'd be chest, triceps, pull, back, biceps, legs. Usually legs are best done by themselves. If I do anything with legs, it'll usually be shoulders. When you weight lift, it's recommended that you don't, pyramid up, but that you pyramid down instead. So instead of doing a certain weight and then increasing the weight as your sets go on, you want to actually start at a decent weight and then decrease it. Because the part of your muscle that fatigues you on the heaviest set, if you're trying to increase the weight, well, because your muscle's already fatigued, you're already not going to do as much, right? And I'm not saying that that's a bad way to exercise, but it's more beneficial if you pyramid down than pyramid up. Hope y'all enjoyed this video. If you did, definitely give me a like, thumbs up, go ahead and comment if you feel you have any comments, questions, or concerns. I do check them periodically. Subscribe if you feel inclined. And also, I never said this before, but make sure you hit that notification bell so that you know that I released a video. And till next time, y'all have a good one. Y'all take care.